I am going to ask you to answer these questions. The who ought to be fairly easy, I should think, depending on how good your eyesight is.
Lincoln.
Yeah, so this is Abraham Lincoln. Any guesses as to where this might be?
London.
Yes. Yeah, I kind of set that up with the first few words of my talk, I realized that. And the why is a little more complicated, so I'm going to take that one on for myself instead of asking you guys to answer it. This is a closer view of the statue, and I think this statue, I really like talking about this because it gives such a kind of tangible reminder of why the American Civil War mattered to people in other parts of the world, and that is really the big point that I want to get across today. And this statue is a really great place to begin doing that. So the story behind the statue, how it came to be there, really nicely captures the way that different groups of foreigners had and have different attitudes towards the American Civil War, kind of looked to Civil War history with different ideas and perceptions. So the statue was originally supposed to go to London rather than to Manchester in 1914, and it was supposed to be a celebration of what they called the 100th anniversary of peace among English-speaking peoples, which basically is the centennial of the end of the War of 1812. So this was the plan, is that this statue would be a great symbol of Anglo-American amity. Well, as you probably know, in 1914 something else happened that kind of got in the way of these plans. The First World War broke out, and so they didn't actually get things moving until after the First World War in 1918 and 1919. And when they did, it became apparent that this statue, which is actually a replica of a statue that's in Cincinnati, a statue that was sculpted by George Gray Barnard, it became apparent that this statue was going to be too controversial. If you look, and again it kind of depends on how well you can see this, but you can see this statue represents a kind of shabby Abraham Lincoln. He's not dressed particularly well. People often notice these ridiculously oversized hands and feet, which were kind of true to life, but I think are exaggerated in this statue. His stance doesn't look very presidential. He's kind of clutching his stomach as though he's eaten too much for lunch or got some kind of digestive complaint. So the Londoners felt like this wasn't the kind of Lincoln they wanted to put in their city. So instead of that one, they opted for this, which is also a replica. This one's a replica of the Lincoln statue that stands in Chicago, sculpted by Augustus and Gordons. And you can see this one's a more dignified vision of Lincoln. You know, he's standing much more upright, looks more of a president than he does in the other picture. And the Manchester Guardian captured this difference with this nice quotation, pointing out that in London, the statue portrayed Lincoln as a president, whereas the Manchester statue portrayed Lincoln as a man. And it was especially appropriate, I think, that this statue ended up in Manchester. First of all, because Manchester's got a bit of a working class reputation. It's a bit rough around the edges. But especially and more specifically because there was actually a famous correspondence in the winter of 1862 and 63 between Lincoln and a group of working men from Manchester. And basically the workers had a meeting New Year's Eve 1862 in which they prepared a letter to Lincoln which reached out, congratulated him on the way the war was going, assured him that they were in support of the Union war goals, and also drew a connection between what they were fighting for in England, the rights of working people, and what he was now fighting for in the United States, freedom and citizenship for slaves.